Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing alright. Let me check my volume. Always check your sound, even when you're being cheated as you make noises. So again, this one is going to be relatively quick because there's not much meat on the bone, and I think it's something that people intuitively know. For those YouTubers who are not necessarily clear yet, especially for those who are in the news, you have been sold out. Your channel that you've worked assiduously to build, that you've put your blood, sweat, tears, that you've worked day in and day out, all night on, particularly from the news standpoint, giving people a different perspective than the nonsense in stereo repetitive propaganda that they get from mainstream networks. If you believe that that moment of respite was coming to an end, you would be right. YouTube has essentially put in millions into getting mainstream media to show content on YouTube. Now, I have no idea why anybody would say, I want to go on YouTube to see what mainstream media is talking about, because I don't get enough mainstream media. And mainstream media, you're spending millions of dollars as opposed to investing that money into the people who are making your channel. One of the things that they noted here is they don't necessarily want to look like they haven't been doing enough. You've been doing too much. You've been doing too much. You understand that you are a competitor to mainstream media. And the mainstream media, for all intents and purposes, want you strangled in the grave, or at the very least want you showing its content. They don't like having competitors. They don't like some other narrative challenging the view of reality. So when Congress brings you to the well and browbeats you, and then you turn back around and essentially implement the policies that Congress wants you to implement, putting your boot on the throats of the creators at the behest or at the whip of Congress. Congress has done an end run around the First Amendment and freedom of protections by essentially trapping that speech in private enterprise, and then beating the devil out of private enterprise to constrain the speech. Let's read the story. I guess my point to this is, you've been sold out. This idea of do no evil was do no evil until Big Brother says something about it, until you can make a financial interest off of those people who essentially made you your company. You understand that this company doesn't exist at all. There is no YouTube without your content creators. And yet the content creators are the ones that get the shaft. You're giving $20 million out, $22 million. YouTube is supposed to be broke. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, but it's supposed to be broke. But right here, YouTube invests $25 million to fix its breaking news problem. What does that mean? Google is showering more attention to YouTube as part of its effort to fight fake news. The streaming news behemoth unveiled updates to service and partnerships to not only boost access to credible news reports, essentially mainstream news, because what is credible? Credible is what's determined by mainstream, but shoot down dubious claims. In the United States, YouTube will soon show relevant articles next to develop news stories that highlights more local news stories. On an international level, it now links to fact-checking articles when searching for videos on small number of subjects prone to bogus claims like the moon landing. So if there's a subject about UFOs, is Twitter or YouTube going to automatically have a video trying to debunk the video on UFOs, even though it doesn't really know whether or not the video on UFOs is debunking the video on UFOs? What about a video on the Venus Project? Would it automatically show a video of somebody saying they're debunking the Venus Project, even though there's no such thing as, they're not debunking the Venus Project? How fine-tuned is this? Because I bet it's not fine-tuned at all. I bet this is money that's going in to essentially say we need to use more mainstream news sources. I mean, right here. boosts credible news reports. What does credible news reports mean? Who determines credibility? Credibility in this case is determined by mainstream media because, after all, that's where the difference lies. What people are saying versus what mainstream media is saying. This idea of having independent journalists flower on YouTube. There will be some screaming aliens are eating babies, but there are also some giving important perspectives that are not being held right now. And the idea that you would turn a blind eye to those people is sad but not shocking. In the United States, YouTube will soon show relevant articles next to developing news stories to highlight more local news stories. On an international level, I read that part. The improvement also involved refining the way YouTube tackles news going forward. It's spending $25 million on an initiative that will create a working group involving organizations like Vox and India Today. I wonder what Vox's India Today's perspective is going to be for improving YouTube's news experience, fund news outlets, creating sustainable video operations, and widening support for news publishers. A digital literacy education strategy with the help of organizations like Stanford University and Partner Institute to help teens think critically about the videos they watch. I do think students need to be able to think critically about the news they watch, but I strongly suspect that if you're working with Vox, you're going to get a perspective that's more akin to whatever the Democratic Party is talking about. Independent media is being strangled by YouTube. It's being strangled by YouTube. As with Google's larger news strategy, YouTube is responding to the allegations that it doesn't do enough to thwart conspiracy peddlers. Again, it's not that you do enough, you do too much. It's one thing if your monetizations was specific. Instead, people have to go through and remonetize the video. And even then, when you have to remonetize the video, it takes 1,000 of the videos. You have many smaller channels that don't get 1,000 videos, in which case the entire time that video went unmonetized, only later on where it may get a few thousand to get monetized. That person just lost money on 1,000 videos. I mean, for fuck's sake. You have no union. You have no say-so over any of the rule set that takes place, even though you are trying to make a living off of this model. And this is aggravating. That's all. This is aggravating. They are throwing us to the wolves. And after building their channel, building their site, after getting them to the point where they had this kind of independent platform for actual news that goes away from the mainstream narrative, now they're cutting you off at the knees, chopping off your balls, and they're going to essentially say, we're going to push mainstream media down your throats because people don't get enough mainstream media on CNN, MSNBC, and on the big major networks, on pretty much any TV set you turn on in the United States. It's amazing. It's amazing. I don't know what's causing the video lag. I don't know if that's something with me or if that's something with the channel, but I'm going to end this now because it seems like this is getting worse and I don't want this video to go too long. All right, guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.